Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Talks. I'm Ikra Ahmed, the host and the editor of the online art newspaper called Abir. Today we have with us Pragati Agarwal, the founder of this initiative, Art Tree. Art Tree aims to bring forward the beauty of Indian folk art to a larger audience. Art Tree was founded around 9 years ago by Pragati ji, and in this episode of Tuesday Talks, we'll be discussing her journey into the art world and in depth insights into the world of folk art. Welcome to Abir Pothi, and thank you so much, Pragati ji, for taking out time for Tuesday Talks.
Thank you, Iftikhar. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm sure it will be a pleasure to talk about a passion which is so close to my heart.
All right. Pragati ji, what the journey has been like so far in art tree, and how did it start, and why folk art and not contemporary art?
My journey started about 9 years ago, and honestly, it was by accident. I had
Okay.
met somebody at one of the hotels, and they wanted me to do a show. I was by that time I was fond of art generally, as any viewer would like, but it wasn't that I was so passionate about it. And it began with contemporary art. They wanted me to do a show with them in the lobby of the hotel, which happened very interestingly for about 24 months. And we used to showcase one new artist every month. But then I realized, it was just a thought which came to my mind. I said, we see a lot of contemporary art, but unfortunately, I'm talking about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when there was not much exposure for folk art.
Hmm.
And that's why I thought, I said, let me see if I can, bring folk art to the fore, reach out to a larger audience. I knew at that time also it will be an uphill journey because not many people knew about the Indian folk art. So then I started working, I started educating myself, started visiting artists, read about it, and that's how the journey of folk art started. So the first show that I did was in 2017 at the Bikaner House on Fad, which
Hmm.
is a art form from Bhilwara in Rajasthan. It's about a 700-year-old art form. I was very fortunate that time to meet Srilal Joshi ji, who is considered to be a revivalist of Fad. I met him 3, 4 times and we did display his works. That was the first Fad show which happened anywhere in India in a solo format.
Wow.
And since then, I've been very, very interested in all folk art forms because I feel the more you read, the more you meet the artist, the lesser you know.
Hmm. So, what the market scene was like 9 years ago and now today?
Market scene that time was more dismal, I would say that. Uh, Stalwarts were working to revive it. I would begin with Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay ji. She did a lot for the folk art, for both fabrics, textiles, and folk art forms. The wall art, when I talk about it. But people, then the Delhi Heart came up, which was again a great initiative. Jayaji was doing a lot of work. Laila ji was doing a lot of work. But I somehow felt, I have, that the more people work towards them, towards reviving it, reaching out to people, the better it is. Since then, a lot of people have been doing art shows, especially like KNMA and all. They have been reaching out where folk arts are concerned. But I still feel there is so much more to it to reach out to the public at large because not many people are aware of all our folk art forms and the techniques and the concepts which go into it.
All right. Well, Artry is doing amazing in that, and I would like you to throw some light on the role of Artry in supporting and nurturing traditional Indian artists.
See, I would go a little off tangent here.
Sure,
See,
sure.
I always feel that an art form or an artist for whom this is the only source of earning, apart from creating an artwork, he needs to sell.
Hmm.
See, the economics and the commercials become very, very important. It's very easy to talk, say, oh, usne wo banaya, usko wo karna chahiye. But unless we don't sell and support the artist's work, how is he going to earn his money? And that is the reason many artists are not encouraging their children to get into it. So we are working very hard to, kind of like, let's say I would give an example of it's a very traditional art form. It's basically mostly based on two characters and their escapades and their karnamas, I would say, Babuji and Dev Narayanji. Now, how many people today tell me if the car need to have gods or like to keep gods in their drawing rooms and bedrooms? Either ways, Indian folk art mostly, I would say, is very religious or religiously oriented. So artery is working towards getting the new concepts. I wouldn't say contemporize it. That's a very, very strong term to use. But to get on new concepts with the artists whilst keeping the traditional techniques, the colors, the fabrics, the way it should have happened in a traditional art form. Then we hold shows with them so that they can sell. People should know about it and educate children also. We try to get government schools, students, we try to collaborate with art schools so that there's an exposure.
Pragati ji, do you think the meaning of folk art changes when it's in museum or when it's in gallery or it's in marketplace like Delhi Hard?
Very difficult to say, I'll be very honest. See, folk art, I would say the concept of folk art, traditionally folk means lok. That's how the word logo ki kala folk art comes in. It was practiced by people for people. It did not have a very kind of exalted position. And most folk artists today, I would say, the traditional ones जो पुश्तों से या जो पीढ़ियों से यही practice कर रहे हैं, very simple people, they are also learning technology, which is, I think, excellent. Maybe them or their kids. But when you say, does the meaning change? I don't think so. It is just that for art, I would like to say folk art is folk art. How would the meaning change? It is for the people, by the people, as the way I put it. I'm not trying to quote Lincoln onto it or JFK onto it. But yes, we more people need to understand. Not many people are even aware of the art forms. Not many people are aware के क्या techniques, क्या colors use होते हैं. So our the more we display it, even in museums, I would say, we should be able to reach out to people. We should be able to tell them what our dharohar is.
Mhm. So, moving to our next question, I would like to know something about documentation. So, what's the significance of Indian art in documenting history and showcasing the fabric of society?
See, the documentation is amazing because no, I would say, no art form is dissociated with with their contemporary times. The very fact that the miniatures became popular because the Mughals liked to document it, document their own escapades about their own selves. It was a self glory. So that's a documentation. Now we have the company school. The company school is also a great documentation of the contemporary times. If you look at the attire, the behavior, so all these form a great documentation. Whereas art forms like Fard or Madhubani or Gond, which are traditional, they document the area around which the artist or the art form is associated. Because most of them are kind of limited to I would say, a geographical region. अब जैसे आप पिछवाई देख लें, पिछवाई इज ओनली इन नाथद्वारा. तो जो भी उनकी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है वो उनका श्रृंगार मान लीजिए आप, कि उनकी ज्वेलरी मान लीजिए, क्योंकि उसका जो मेन सोर्स है, जो मेन मोटिव है उनका, वो श्रीनाथ जी है, उनका 8 साल का बाल स्वरूप. तो अब आप उसको डॉक्यूमेंटेशन मान सकते हैं. जैसे वर्ली में अगर आप जाएं, तो वर्ली में यदि आप देखें तो दे आर काइंड ऑफ, because Varli is a tribal art form. They're very closely associated with the land because they're mostly farmers, they're tribals. तो उनमें वो लोग क्या क्या उनमें जैसे कैसे उनकी, आई वुड से, how they do the harvesting, how they live, how their dance is, the tarpa dance which they do. So, all these become a great source of documentation historically and contemporarily also. So, I would say, just like any literature book, any novel, or any classic book is also a representation of the times when it was written. I would say, similarly, an art form is also a representation of a time when it was made.
Hmm.
So they're extremely important for it. But unfortunately, most of our art forms are passed down generations by word of mouth. They, that techniques are not documented, which many artists have started doing now.
All right. So document. So folk art we are talking about. They are documents, to a certain culture and society. So we need to document these documents, the arts. So which are the dying arts which you think are needing needing our constant, attention?
अब आप वर्ली सॉरी सांची देख लें. Sanji is a art of paper cutting from Mathura. There are only 7 people who are doing it in the world.
Wow.
And it talks about, और उसमें जो कटिंग होती है जो पेपर की, दे हैव अ स्पेशल सिजर्स बाय विच वो अपने आप ही बनाते हैं ठोक पीट के, एंड दे डू इट. और उसमें अधिकतर दी लीलास ऑफ कृष्ण आर काइंड ऑफ depicted. Now, if there are only 7 artists who are doing it and the children don't do it, it will be a lost form. So we need to encourage people like these. Chalo Pichwai ke, because of the tourism in Rajasthan, and especially Udaipur being a very very central tourist spot, these art forms have still stayed. अब जैसे आप चंबा रुमाल देख लीजिए, though it is a traditional embroidery form, there are only 4 or 5 people doing it. Now I would say we all need to work towards educating and teaching people so that these art forms don't get finished. अब जैसे फड़ है, फड़ के जो ट्रेडिशनल है वो 2 ही फैमिलियां करती हैं, तो उसमें मुश्किल से 10 होंगे लोग बाग. People are learning, but then they do not have that kind of a passion to work towards it as the only source of life and management that they can do. गोंद में बहुत फैमिलीज आ गई हैं, वर्ली में भी गिने चुने लोग हैं. So so most of our art forms, especially in northern India, they really a lot of people need to work towards it, to support it, and most probably and more importantly, I would say, to educate the younger generations to take it up so that the forms don't die.
Museums are doing great. They are conducting workshops to incorporate more children, school children, and they're really pushing forward. But what all other steps can be taken to educate children and infuse interest in folk art?
देखिए, इफ्तिकार, दिस इज अ वेरी लॉन्ग टर्म एंड अ वेरी, दिस हैज टू बी वेरी कंसिस्टेंट एक्सरसाइज. आज एक स्कूल के बच्चे आए, they have come, they have learned. Let's say 50 students have participated in the workshop. How many do you think will carry on with it? Maybe 2, max to max, not even that possibly. So this has to be kind of, जैसे लोहार की होती है ना, धीरे धीरे आप, सॉरी, सुनार की, 100 सुनार की और एक लोहार की जो होती है, जिसे हम कहा जाता है. This is an exercise which needs to keep continuing. We need to keep talking about it. We need to reach out to people. That is initially, no art form was made on merchandise and no art form was on textiles. Textiles were a different league itself. Now, the very fact that Madhubani is coming on saris, on dupattas, Fad is coming, Pichwai is coming, that's a great way of, the message spreading. One can look at it from a point of view that we are losing the traditional style of that art form. But yes, एक साड़ी will go out, आपने 10 sarees बनाई, they will go out to 10 people. When you wear it, 100 people will see. So it is a kind of a depiction of the same art form. So this is an exercise which needs to be carried on. I always say it needs to be a part of the syllabus also.
Yes.
I strongly believe in it. Unfortunately, not many schools. I would talk about Delhi NCR. I'm not talking about the regional schools or anything. कि बहुतों को तो आर्ट फॉर्म्स पता ही नहीं. Even if you have art in school, most people like to go abroad, or even if they go to design schools, how many of them have an actual dedicated art teacher for Indian art forms? So they should be a part of the syllabus even in college. I'm sure. I'm honestly unaware of the college syllabus, but school syllabus I have a fair idea that Indian art is not a part of the curriculum,
Yeah.
which I think it should be.
Yeah, in fact, any form of art like aesthetics, we don't get to learn in our school.
We don't do. In fact,
Yeah.
अगर 11th में आप art as a subject लेते हैं, तो they do a lot of projects, but unfortunately मैंने कभी भी इंडियन आर्ट का नहीं सुना है. क्योंकि इंडियन आर्ट आई फील it is so much to see, it's so much to learn. Like I'll give you an example. Fur art होती है, which is a kind of a scroll. Initially it was made in 15 feet, 30 feet. So उनके लोकल जो राजा होते थे या पंचायत वाले होते थे, it was a form of transferring of education, of knowledge. Sorry, education is the wrong term, of knowledge. तो after sunset the whole scroll उसको दो बैम्बूज पे टांगा जाता था, एंड रात को जो वो इट वाज डन मोस्टली बाय द प्रीस्ट एंड द प्रीस्टेस. रबाड़ी ट्राइब के होते थे बिकॉज देर नॉमड्स. तो वो जो स्त्री होती थी वो लंगा सा घूंघट निकाल के एक बड़ा सा दिया है उनका, उसको एक पोर्शन को इल्यूमिनेट करती है, एंड द प्रीस्ट द भोपा सिंग्स अराउंड इट. उसमें थोड़ा रामायण भी डाला जाता है, महाभारत भी. अब ये जो है इसमें ऑल द कैरेक्टर्स का सिर्फ प्रोफाइल दिखाया जाता है, the front, and they traditionally did not use gold, they did not use blue color. The blue color and the frontal face was only shown of the negative characters. तो जो लोग फड़ के बारे में छोट गांव में या जहाँ पे वो जाते थे जो जानते हैं, उनको पता था ओह ये है तो ये रावण भी हो सकता है, ये कंस भी हो सकता है, मतलब जो भी कैरेक्टर है, whichever it is. अब these are the finer nuances which people should know about. These are all our, I would say, heritage. गोंद है, because they were tribals, they used to live in forests. तो अधिकतर वो लोग trees, animals, birds यही बनाते हैं. So that's again a part of our culture.
So, Pragati ji, when we talk about progression in terms of history, so there are things that continues and there are things that changes over a period of time. So it's always the overlapping. So in times of globalization, how do you see folk art? I'll give you one example. Like Worldly art, it's been doing on walls, on canvases, on glass, digitally. So how do you do that? How do you see that?
I think it's a fantastic idea. As I'll also begin with Varli only, or I'll begin with Madhubani. Now, both Varli and Madhubani were the only woman-centric arts in India, because these women used to do two. Madhubani was a folk art, Varli was a tribal art. Both of these were done on the walls by the women to beautify their homes. अब वर्ली हमेशा गोबर लीप के, गोबर लगा के दीवार पे, और उस पर चावल के आटे से करी जाती है. ठीक है, चावल के आटे का पेस्ट बना के, फॉर द सिंपल रीजन कि ट्रेडिशनली मुंबई एरिया जहाँ के आसपास महाराष्ट्र एरिया में वो वर्ली आर्ट बनती है, वहाँ पे राइस इज द मेन, पैडी एंड राइस इज द मेन क्रॉप. Then we come to Madhubani. Madhubani was initially Sita ji ka hi hota tha, and now people have evolved. Again, it is wall to paper to canvas to kapda, or kapda या canvas simultaneously. अब wall से तो this progress, wall पे जो art है, it cannot go to anyone's place. जबकि आप पेपर और कैनवस और कपड़े पे बनाएंगे, this is an art which can be taken anywhere in the world. Same happened with Varli or any other art form for that matter, I would say. So if you digitalize it, unless the artist is very savvy to do it, there would be a little loss of his talent, I would say. Unless somebody else does it for him
Hmm.
to do it. But yes, if there is a painting and it can be digitalized and it can go onto a broader network, yes, it makes a lot of sense. People
But
reach out.
doesn't this change the essence of the artwork?
It does. It does. Most artists do not like to put their works on social media or any such platforms because they feel their creativity gets copied. There's a lot of plagiarism.
Hmm.
Okay, if I'm an artist, if I put something and somebody else can copy it, who's stopping them? So when we do shows, most artists do not even like to get an e-catalog made.
Oh wow.
Yes, because I do shows regularly with them every 6 months to a year. I
Hmm.
because artists have point blank refused कि मैम हम आपको दे रहे हैं, आप लगा लीजिए, कोशिश कीजिए कि लोग इसके आगे फोटो भी ना खींचे. I said, now that I can't stop people from doing it. If we have a lot of people coming in, I can't stop them. So they say, okay, fine, आप उसको मत रोकिए, क्योंकि जो उसके सामने खड़ा होगा आधी पेंटिंग तो छुपी जाएगी, which is fair enough. But they have categorically refused for e-catalogs.
So how does the social media shape the trajectory of folk art in India?
See, the social media shapes the trajectory in the sense that when I would bring it, make it a little personal as to when we do a show,
Hmm.
right? Or even when the artist does. Artist जब अपने लिए अपने आप को publicize करता है, whenever he does or she does it, they try not to put the whole painting on a shot. They'll put parts of it. Most artists today are quite savvy and they are very, very active on social media. Initially, they were on Facebook. Now, most of them are on Instagram because it's
Yeah.
a quick way and they add their own music, they do everything. They may have, some of them even have social media managers to manage their pages, which I think is amazing. And most of them have their children doing it for them because they may not be so much educated or tech savvy, but their children are mostly learning. So they and children today are wherever they are in the country, they are quite advanced. I would say, सबको पता है क्या करना है. So they have children doing it for them, which I think is very very interesting. So all of them are very very active on social media, but when they put up images of their work, they unless it's a very generic or nothing very exemplary, they will put a whole image. Otherwise, they don't like to do it.
And how does the copyright work with the folk art?
That's a big problem.
Hmm.
It's a big issue. One artist, let's say, makes let's say a Ram Sita Vivah, because traditionally उस art form में वो चल ही रहा है.
Hmm.
Let's talk about Madhubani. Madhubani में Ram Sita Vivah is one of the central motifs
Hmm.
because Sita was from Madhubani, right?
Hmm.
Now, for generations, people have made that motif or that theme. So there cannot be a copyright on it.
Exactly.
So there are always I have had issues with some of the artists, and I've seen similar works. Let's say some artist has done a, a X topic, X theme, I would say, without naming them. After about 3 months, I would see a similar badly made version on Facebook. I have spoken to the artist. See, what you have given me is very similar to this. She says yes. Because she has put the second artist has put it up later. She says I can't send them a notice because there is no copyright issues. There are no copyright laws for folk art.
Hmm.
So it is sad. So that is the reason. Again, I would come back. Most artists do not like to put it on social media or something, or get too many pictures clicked. That also becomes a deterrent.
Hmm. So let's talk about the representation. Like all the artists in India, like what's the ratio of male and female artists?
Mostly males.
Mostly males.
Women, अब जैसे I'll come back again to Madhubani and Worli. Both
Hmm.
were women dominated, women centric art forms. Madhubani में still women who are doing it, large part. There, men doing art is considered to be because it's a little Bihar is a little, I would say, a misogynist or whatever kind of a society, a male dominated society. So, fine arts or arts are not supposed to be a manly profession to follow. So, there are some males who follow it and they were initially looked down upon. But yes, women are doing it more only in Madhubani. Bakis in or other maybe embroideries, possibly on textiles, but where traditional folk arts are concerned, very little women in it. Varli has maybe two women in it. In fact, they do not teach it to the girls of the family traditionally. For the their logic is that the girl will go to another house, she will carry the techniques which they don't want, and the bahu who comes, she's not meant to work, so she's not taught. It is a little sad, but women are very less. Let's say if there are 100 artists doing folk art, hypothetical terms, not more than 10%. That's also a very high sum.
Hmm.
So I do like to encourage women who are doing it. I like to showcase their works because I feel that's the least I can do to give back to the society being a woman myself.
Hmm. So, what should be the approach for someone who wants to learn a specific kind of folk art, be it male, female?
Whatever. I would suggest the best way to learn is to visit the artist regularly or if possible stay with them because just like dance and music, this also needs a lot of sadhana.
Hmm.
Most of these artists they do freehand because they've learned it over the years from their parents, from their fathers, grandfathers, from the early childhood. They maybe go to school, there's that, but every day 1 2 hours they would practice. So that's the best way to learn. I wouldn't say a guru shishya parampara, but I would say let's say अब जैसे डांस कोई सीखते हैं कोई ट्रेडिशनल आर्ट डांस फॉर्म है
Hmm.
भरतनाट्यम है कथक है they do a sadhana for years. Same is with a music or any instrument. I would kind of equate it with the same thing. Okay, if you have to really learn how to do an art form, and in a well, dedicatedly, then you must sit with an artist, learn it regularly for some years, and then kind of add finesse to your own form because it takes years to learn it properly. And these people do it, I would say, freehand. Sometimes they use it a nib, sometimes they use sticks. Brushes are used very rarely. Let's say in a miniature art form, they use a very, very thin brush, one hair of the squirrel tail, two hair of the squirrel tail. अब इफ्तिकार उसको संभालना उसको बनाना it's a very very uphill task.
What are the challenges faced by the folk artists in terms of recognition, economic sustainability, and cultural preservation?
Two things I would say. Folk art in India does not demand the price as it should. The artists have to really struggle. They don't keep very high margins because no, most people do not respect their creativity and the labor that they put in. So that's a great, challenge that we as curators face to get them that recognition. Everybody feels, अरे ये तो क्या है ये तो ऐसे ही बन जा अरे ऐसे कैसे बन जाता है भाई please see the kind of effort that man has done for 20 years 25 years. Please respect that fact. Contemporary art, because it has been extremely popular, we have collectors for it. Matlab, I feel very sad because Indian art does not get that. Indian folk art, when I say Indian art, I mean Indian folk art. Indian folk art does not get that value and that recognition that it should get. Because maybe it is because it's been there, it is ours. Internationally, it is very well accepted and acclaimed, and it gets better economic values than it does in India.
So, do you think the impacts of tourism and cultural tourism on the practices and preservation of folk art in India play a role?
It would, it would tremendously. See, I will give you some examples. This Udaipur hai. उदयपुर में अब पिछवाइस जो है, why are they so popular worldwide? Because Udaipur has been a great tourism hub. So when people go there, वहाँ पे मतलब, pardon my saying, lot of shops and artists are sitting, जैसे गली नुक्कड़ पे बोलते हैं, हाँ? They are sitting and they are selling works and they're doing some amazing works. So it has increased the economic sustainability. अगर आप पुरी के पास जाएं, there is a place called Raghurajpur. Now that is known as artisanal village. There may be about 50, 60 houses. They all do pattachitras. And there are, tours to that village. When you go to Bhubaneswar and Puri, there are tours to that village so that people can go there, they visit, they buy art. So, if these things can be done, the very fact that we don't have a folk art gallery or a museum in India, I think that itself speaks volumes. We have uh, Gallery of Modern Art, we have Gallery of Falana, we have Gallery of Dimkana, we have Textile Museum. But have you ever heard of a folk art museum in India? One should do that, if we can. That's my, my viewpoint, and that's my, I would say, aim to establish a kind of a museum like that, where we have regular shows, the artists come, they stay, they impart knowledge, they talk about their art form, because there is so much to learn. It's unbelievable. आप जितना करेंगे आपको लगेगा, oh, I didn't notice this. The very fact how you make colors. Rajasthan has more colors which are more mineral based because there are lesser plants there, being a desert. Whereas in Gond and in Madhubani we have more vegetable colors because these are very fertile lands. तो इस तरह की अगर डाइवर्सिटी एंड दिस तरह की चीजें हैं, हाउ टू मेक कलर्स इटसेल्फ इज अ होल a different ball game. Ideally, I would really like, a museum established or a center for folk arts, things like that, where only folk art is worked upon. People come and discuss, the artists come and stay. Just like most art forms are associated also with music. Like, because when women paint or there are folk dances, I'm not talking about the traditional dance forms, but let's say, in fact, when the Bhopa sings, he dances with it. That that is very dramatic. In Madhubani, when women paint, they sing. आपस में ही गाती हैं, but they sing. So these itself are very, very, music is an integral part of folk art. It's a local music. So one should kind of, encourage, if we can find, I'm very, between you and me, a place like this where we can promote this, support this on a full-time basis.
Yeah. So talking about support, what's the government doing? And when I say government, I mean the government museum and these government institutes. What role they're playing?
See, honestly, I would say I've not found out much about it, because whatever shows I've done with my own help. I have spent my own money. But yes, the artists tell me that the Ministry of Textiles and all does take the artists outside India on a regular basis, does support them on a very large basis. वो बहुत कर रहे हैं. अब जैसे अभी I had read that Anita and Mukesh Ambani's Center for Culture, they had done a whole show for I think 15 days or something on folk arts. So many artists whom I'm associated with were there. So these kind of platforms, if given to people, is a great thing. I'm sure the government is doing quite a bit. वरना उनके बिना तो हम जैसे लोग तो बिल्कुल भी सक्सेस, how much can we do with our limited resources? But yes, I know that the government does take them internationally, does take them abroad. Like we used to have, I don't know if you remember, many years ago, Festival of Indias. Indira Gandhi had started this. And I think every 6 months, a huge amount of artists were taken, because the logistics of this were phenomenal, to different countries where they would showcase their artworks, the textiles, and things, and even dance and music, which was an extremely great cultural show that they would do regularly. So something like this can be done. But yes, the government is doing a lot. But then there's a limitation to how much can a government also do.
All right, Pragati ji. So, what are the current projects that Artray is working on currently?
We plan to do some workshops, and in November, we are doing a show on 5 art forms at the Bikaner House, for which we've already started working. And the artists are creating special works, especially for the show. And so let's see. We hope we are showcasing some amazing artists like Jangar Sham's daughter. We are showing. She rarely does shows, but we've convinced her to do. Then we are doing Sanchi. Again, as I said, there are only 5 or 6 people who are working towards it. So most people call it a stencil work. I like to call it a paper cutting work. So then Madhubani, we are creating some new works which have never been created before, keeping the old techniques, but yes, there are no gods in it.
Mhm.
And so that's the immediate plan. Though it's in November, but we need to start working a good time so that we can
Yeah.
try to give the people of Delhi something interesting to talk about.
Hmm. All right, Pragati ji, thank you so much for taking out time in participating in Tuesday Talks, and we wish you all the best for your November exhibition at Bikaner House, and looking forward to see you again.
Thank you, Iftikhar, and thank you, Abir Pothi, for having me. And it's been a great talking to you and sharing my views with you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.